Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you the best way to learn to code. You don't need any previous experience and you won't have to spend any money. I'm going to use my own experience as a self-taught programmer so that you can avoid some of the mistakes I made that really slowed down my progress. The main things I'm going to be covering are why it's important when you start out to define a goal and really nail down why you want to learn to code, the best overall learning strategy and resource to use, and finally some general advice and tricks to improve your odds of success, mainly about how to stay motivated and learn as fast as possible. I'll also be putting out future videos covering related topics and how to advance your career and branch out into other areas of programming, so be sure to subscribe for those videos. So why listen to me? I think it's important that I'm actually self-taught. A lot of these tutorials I see are pretty much useless because they don't come from people who've actually done it. It's hard to take a video seriously when it's coming from somebody who has a computer science degree from some elite university and they're trying to teach you how to learn to code on your own. They just don't understand what it's like, so they can't really give you accurate advice. And that's basically what this video is about, my personal experience, so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls I fell into, and basically what I'd have done differently if I knew what I knew now. So the first thing I think you should do is define your goal for why you want to learn to code. It's really important for maintaining motivation over the long term. Some of the main things I see is like you want a new job, so if you don't like your current job, you want to make more money as fast as possible. That's going to have an impact on what you do when you're learning to code. Second reason is, like what I did, is I wanted to be more valuable at my current job, which I was doing marketing related stuff, and I wanted to be able to do more. I wanted to automate tasks and be able to work with data. So that's another thing, is just becoming better at your current job. And a third one would be like maybe you have an idea for an app and you want to be able to make a prototype. That's also going to impact what you do, because you might not care about the low-level computer science level details. You just want to be able to code something up really fast and make something cool. So all that stuff is going to have an impact on how you learn and what you should focus on, so it's good to figure that out early. So now to answer probably your biggest question, which is how do you start and what is the best learning path? For me, starting out, my biggest problems really were that there's so many different resources you can choose from, and as a result I'd spend a lot of time doing research on Google, looking at reviews, stuff like that, rather than just getting started in coding. And also, instead of just committing to one resource, I bounced around a ton, which I think slowed down my learning progress by months. So I think your best option is to commit to one resource. In my opinion, Free Code Camp is the best option. First off, it's free, like the name says, so you have no excuse in terms of it being too expensive. It teaches you JavaScript, which is the most versatile programming language around, and pretty much anything you want to do in terms of programming, you can use JavaScript to do that. Another big thing is the community around it. Thousands of people have gone through it, so there's always tons of resources and help if you get stuck on any part of it. There's a whole forum and community that'll help you out. This is huge from a psychology standpoint, because you want to avoid frustration and anything that gets you stuck and demotivates you, because learning code's hard enough anyway. You want to put all the odds in your favor, so that's a huge factor. It's also very practical. They don't focus initially on a lot of low-level stuff, so they get you started right away and you can start making cool stuff. Once you've gone through Free Code Camp, that's where you can start to branch off and focus more on your specific goals. Once you've learned to code, you can follow project tutorials, solve your own problems, make whatever you want, but the big thing is just learning to code, and I think to do that, Free Code Camp is your best bet. One of the most common questions is how long will it take to learn to code? There's several factors, but the general range is going to be 3 months to 12 months. First thing is going to be whether you're a full-time or part-time learner. It's obviously going to take a little bit longer if you have a day job versus if you can spend all day learning to code. Second, you're going to have personal aptitude. So like any skill, some people pick things up more naturally, whether it's coding or something like sports. Some people just kind of take to it naturally and they learn at a faster rate. but it's not a huge deal. Pretty much anybody is going to be able to learn to code. Learning strategy is also going to play a role, like I talked about earlier. This is where defining your goal comes into play. If you want to be a full-blown software engineer, it's going to take a little bit longer because you're going to want to know those low-level computer science concepts. On the other hand, if you just want to get a job as fast as possible, you can learn the basics of coding and then just learn like a web framework of some sort and let that kind of magic happen underneath the hood, and you can get a job. Some companies, they don't need full-blown software engineers really. They just need somebody who knows how to work with whatever tools they're using. So that's really the three main factors into how long it's going to take you to learn to code. And finally, some general advice and tips. First thing I'd say is set a specific time of day to code and really make it part of your daily routine. Don't leave it to chance. Don't just leave it for when you feel motivated. Otherwise, you will probably end up failing. Best time would probably be, I see a lot of people that they just decide to get up earlier than they normally would, and they set that time aside so that they can do whatever tasks they're working on related to coding. Otherwise, it could also be like maybe when you get out of class if you're still in school, or if you get off work. But you want to make sure that you're very consistent, even if it's just one line of code or one problem on Free Code Camp. I think it's important to keep that consistency. A lot of people do they get really motivated and hyped for the 1 hour of code per day, but I think that's a bad kind of thing, because some days you just won't feel motivated and you won't do it, and then after a couple days you're just gonna end up kind of giving up. So just stick to the minimum really as your goal. Some days that's all you'll do. Other days you'll be in the zone and you'll write code for hours. But the most important thing is just staying consistent. Following up to that is don't get stuck. That's why Free Code Camp is so important. One of the most frustrating things I'd do is I'd follow some blog post or resource, and halfway through you'd find some error in the code, you couldn't figure it out. You'd waste all this time, and it's just demotivating when you spend 2 hours following some tutorial and you can't finish it. So that's the benefit of Free Code Camp, which is that thousands of other people have done the same problems. You can always find some way to get unstuck. They have hints, all sorts of stuff. So that's one of the biggest bonuses of that. Secondly is kind of gamifying the learning so that it's enjoyable. That's another thing that Free Code Camp is great at. They have every little problem you solve, they show that you have a daily streak. They show you get a nice little congratulations message every time you complete one. It makes it fun, and it's kind of like you keep wanting to go for a high score every day to see how many problems you can solve and how consistent you can be. Finally, a big thing that a lot of people aren't used to is you have to get used to feeling dumb and failing. So in normal day-to-day life in a lot of different careers, you don't experience that very often. With coding and programming, you're going to feel that every day, where something that seems really simple, you get stuck for a long time trying to figure it out. You're going to go from feeling like a genius 1 minute to the next feeling incredibly stupid. So there's lots of ups and downs, and you're just going to have to, over time, get used to that. It's normal. You're going to have moments where you feel like you're too dumb to learn to code, all sorts of stuff. Biggest thing being that I think for people in computer science majors is they have other classmates to kind of work with and compare their progress to, and that's one of the toughest things about being self-taught is you have no real frame of reference. So it can be kind of mentally tough sometimes, but that's just the biggest thing you're going to have to deal with. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope it helped you out. If you're a more advanced programmer and you have any advice, be sure to leave it below in a comment, and it might help some other people watching this video. I'll be doing some follow-up videos on like what are the best programming languages to learn and why, various career paths and learning paths once you've gone beyond the basics, how to start looking for jobs, and general career advice. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, be sure to subscribe.